Welcome to Daily 5 for Monday, September 16th, 2024. I have been reading and seeing reviews of a movie from earlier this year titled Twilight of the Warriors Walled In, for a while now, and I have been waiting for this movie to come out because I've seen clips from it. I'd read all these reviews that had said that this was a fantastic action film that was attempting to recapture the spirit of early and kind of late 80s, but the earlier era of Hong Kong action films, when the films that I have reviewed many times that I absolutely love, and just based on what I had seen and again read about it, it sounded like it was almost a surefire hit. So I waited. I expected it to come out at the typical new release $20 rental price on Amazon. I'm very happy to say it's only $6, so you don't have to pay that higher price. I suspect that's because it's subtitled, and so they know that people are not going to be as willing to rent a subtitled film for a higher price, which is ridiculous, but I'm pretty sure that's the only explanation I can come up with for it, unless there's something else somebody knows about. Please feel free to tell me. But that's the only thing that makes sense, because most other films, as soon as they do a day one rental or, day one release, they're generally more expensive than this. However, this is in Chinese with subtitles, so that's why I think it's more or less expensive than a typical film. In any event, the movie is set in the early 80s in Kowloon's walled city enclave, it's a real place that used to exist. Read about it. It's fascinating. That this lawless kind of tenement city, I don't know what else, it just kind of evolved into this place where a lot of poor people lived. There was very little law enforcement certainly there, and it was in existence until, I want to say, the mid to late 90s. I could be getting that date wrong. I don't remember exactly when they tore it down. But fascinating place to set an action film, because what it does, it gives you a lot of opportunities to do fight choreography in tight spaces and across multiple levels, meaning a lot of verticality. And that is what this movie does exceptionally well. It utilizes that space to wonderful effect. This does, in many ways, as people have said, recapture a lot of that feeling of older Hong Kong action films. I'm not going to say it does it one-to-one. There is some use of CG. There are some things that will give away that it's a modern film. But in its spirit and in much of its execution, this will feel to you like it could have been from that era, the golden age of Hong Kong action films. And it really is just magnificent. Like, it is very well paced. The fight choreography is often excellent, and even when it's not excellent, it's still very good and far ahead of most other things you'll see in current action films. It's just a different flavor of action. I'm not going to say it's necessarily, I know people like different types of action films, so I'm not going to tell you it's better than what you think an action film is, but for what it is trying to achieve, it manages to do it almost always very, very well. And that by itself would be the reason to watch it. But also, the performers are fantastic. There's a lot of, they utilize for a movie like this, a fairly large ensemble cast, and they do it well. You'll note Sammo Hung is in it. There are some other names that you may be familiar with, depending on what your familiarity with Hong Kong action films are, or is, I should say, to use the proper term, what your familiarity is with these types of films. But regardless of your knowledge of it or not, even if you don't watch a lot of these films typically, I would say for $6, rent this movie if you like action films. Especially if you've never seen some of the older ones. This might give you a bit of a taste to get into that older stuff, to delve into that older catalog, because this is a good entry point as it is a modern film, but it also is made in a way that doesn't feel disconnected from those older movies, especially because so many of them are getting remastered now and re-released. You could easily go from this to something that was actually filmed in the 80s, and outside, of course, the fashion and some of the hairstyles and some giveaways of the age, you might see a movie that is almost as pristine as this, and every bit as good, if not better, depending on what your estimation is, as this one in terms of action. But no matter what, I would recommend this to any fans of action films, unless you're looking for a lot of gunfighting. If that's your idea of an action film, this is pretty light in that department. But as far as hand-to-hand, as far as watching people that have to fight across all these different varied spaces, you are going to have a good time with this one. I could not recommend this highly enough. One of those films that really has lived up to a lot of the build-up that I got from reviews and write-ups on it. So again, it's called Twilight of the Warriors, Walled In, $6 to rent on Amazon. Let me tell you, with no reservation, that will be a well-spent $6. Rent this one if you're into action as soon as you can. You're going to have a good time. Later.